If you're ready for a reset, I want to talk to you for about 10 minutes, I'd say, just about how to approach that in your life. So, resets are very common in the Bible. Jesus would actually give people a new name. He'd say, like, you're not Simon anymore, you're going to be Peter. And he'd give them a new identity. Simon means reed, which is easily swayed. But he gave him a new identity of rock. And he said, upon this Petra, upon this rock, I will build my church. So he not only gave him a new identity, he gave him a new purpose. And some people seem afraid of that these days. It's like, oh, why are you chopping and changing? And, I thought you were going to do this. And when I knew you were like that. And they're afraid of change. But Jesus was never afraid of change. In fact, his whole thing is to be born again. He said to Nicodemus, you must be born again. And when you are reborn, you're not born the same. So that was the mistake that Nicodemus made. He's like, do I, as a fully grown adult man, have to go back into my mother's womb? And Jesus was like, no, you don't get it. And I think a lot of people think that being born again means just becoming a baby. No, it's not like that at all. I once saw actually this magnificent waratah. There's two of them together. I think it's the official flower of New South Wales. It's on all the New South Wales government kind of letterhead and stuff. And one of them had been burnt by the fire and was regenerating. There was a new bud, new growth coming. And the other one hadn't been burnt by the fire, but it was looking a bit old and wilted and worse for wear. And when I saw them, I just thought, I bet you that old one is wishing they had been burnt by the fire and that they were growing again, growing anew, looking beautiful with a new bloom, a new bud, new hope, regeneration, life. And so that's what I want to do for you today, is to get you born again, different to the way you were first born, to have a reset, to have a change. Paul, the apostle, writing to the Corinthian church, he said, you are a new creation. That means a new species. You're not just like the old self, but with a makeover. You're a completely new species. There's never been anything like you before. And there probably won't be again, because God's designed you to be uniquely you. And so if you're looking at having a reset, having a regeneration, it might be time to look at what are you doing now that has to die. Jesus talked about pruning, and ouch, things getting cut out of your life can just be really unpleasant. When someone comes at you with a pair of pruning shears, it's like, leave me alone. I want to keep my old ways. But the reason why the vine dresser prunes is so that you'll have more fruit and fruit that remains. So it's better, more long-lasting fruit. It's fruitful. Fruit is never for yourself, right? The tree never goes, oh, I'm hungry, I think I'll grow an orange today. No, fruit is always for someone else to come and glean from your life. Just take what they need. And so it needs to look good to be fruit. A lot of people think, oh, I'm so fruitful because I'm telling people off all the time. That's not fruitful. To be fruit, it has to look good to the eye. And it has to be nourishing. It has to be sustaining. And usually fruit is sweet. There are some sour fruit. I've just been staying at my parents' house in Perth, and they had a mandarin tree in the back garden, and I picked some mandarins off it, and they were a bit sour. I battled through one of them, but I didn't have any more after that. So fruit should be sweet and it should look good. It should be attractive. So what fruit do you want? And to produce that, you'll have to probably be pruned. What's in your life now that is just a distraction? Or it's just something that's not working anymore? When Joseph went down to Egypt, he was not in a good position. He was about to be killed by his brothers, and he only got saved because he got sold into slavery. And so he was sold as a slave and started working for his master, and actually rose to become in charge of everything that his master had, except for his decisions about his family and his own food and things like that. Well, when Joseph died, he was, still at the top of kind of society in Egypt, and his family and his descendants all were getting favourable treatment from the Pharaoh, the government, we would say Prime Minister or King or top dog. So it was really working for them, and they grew and multiplied. But by the time that Moses came along, hundreds of years later, it wasn't working for the Israelites anymore. The Israelites had gone from Joseph being the second in charge of the whole country to being slaves again. Every Israelite was a slave. And, they were under oppression. And God told Moses, I've heard the pleas of my people. Get them out of here. Sometimes God doesn't want you to go through it anymore. He wants to get you out of it. That's what Exodus is all about. It's like, let's get out of here. Let's have an exit. Let's get out of here. Let's not try and change this from the inside. Let's not be resilient and battle through. Let's just get out of here. And it was a battle to get out. Moses had to kind of try and convince Pharaoh, and God did supernatural things to change his heart to let them go. And even then, they sort of changed their mind again and started chasing them. But getting out is a valid strategy. So there'll be some things in your life that used to work for you that don't work for you now. Maybe there was a job that used to work for you, and your boss gave you favour, and you had promotion, and you were enjoying it, and you were serving other people, and they loved being served, and everything was going well, but it doesn't work like that anymore. If it stopped working for you, then maybe God's strategy is to get you out of there. Maybe it's a relationship that used to work for you, used to be really good friends, you used to just hang out all the time, you used to help each other out, and you were really good influence on each other. And lately it's not like that anymore. And it's actually doing harm. It's not helping. Just get out. Like, reset. Just get out. Exodus was the second book that God wrote after Genesis, and communicating who he was and how to start, and the start that he gave you, the start that he wants you to make. The very next thing displayed in the Bible is the book of Exodus, and it's how to get out, and how to survive on the way out and get into a promised land, some better real estate, a better territory. That's what God wants for you. So start looking at things like that. What do you want your promised land to be? And what do you want to leave behind? And what are you prepared to go through on the journey there? That's a big one, because as soon as the Israelites started heading towards the promised land, one of their first complaints was, I miss the onions and the leeks back in Egypt. The food was better when we're in Egypt than it is in this wilderness. And so they wanted to turn around and go back into a life of slavery just so they could have better snacks. Obviously a bad decision, But some people are like that. They have this vision for what their life could be, and they're willing to leave behind their old life and head towards their new life, but they just don't make it because they're not willing to pay the price of the journey in between. But you know, every time someone made that journey in the Bible, it was always worth it. Always worth it. God only calls you to better things. He calls you out of worse things and into a better future. So I've used up my 10 minutes talking to you already. Thank you for your time, for listening. I hope it's helped for everyone who wants to do a reset, to, you know, reinvent themselves, to do an inventory on their life, to look at what sort of things can I prune out of my life so I get better fruit? What sort of things can I leave behind, make an exodus from, so I can get to the promised land? Let me know in the comments below if it helped you. See ya.